Unbroken, healing through storytelling.
Welcome to Unbroken, the podcast with me, Madeleine Black, where I am speaking to inspiring people that I've met along my own journey. And today, you will not be disappointed. Today, I'm interviewing Gordana Biernat. She is a mentor, thinker, writer, speaker, and wisdom keeper. She is one of Oprah Winfrey's SuperSoul 100 teachers, a group of 100 awakened leaders who are using their voices and talent to elevate humanity. As a mentor, Gordana provides guidance and inspiration, assisting those who seek self-development and a greater sense of being through intellectual and spiritual inquiry. As a thinker, she influences conscious communications through higher thought. She shares her thoughts on Twitter and other social media platforms, initiating creative process. Her message is universal and not biased by politics or temporary trends. It appeals to audiences representing practically all cultures, religious and genders. Her straightforward and empowering tweets have already inspired hundreds of thousands across the globe, and her book, Know the Truth, Why Knowing Who You Are Changes Everything, is a collection of Gordana's most profound wisdom. Know the Truth opens readers' eyes to his or her inherent inner power and true potential, and it will remind you of who we are and why we are here. So welcome, Gordana. So lovely to have you on the show. How are you today?
Thank you so much for having me, Madeline. I'm doing great, actually. Even though it's cold and winter here in Sweden, I'm doing great.
Oh, well,
I
I'm
love
speaking to you
it.
from a cold and colder, freezing Glasgow in Scotland as well. I've got my cup of tea and my heater here as well.
Exactly. The heater is on and everything is cool.
But the first question I always start by asking all of my guests, because we are called Unbroken, is what does that word unbroken mean to you?
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful word. To me, I think it means that who I truly am cannot be hurt by anything from the outside. In a sense, that is who I am. I am unbroken. I am the stillness, exploring how it feels to be broken in this world. But I, who I truly am, can never be broken. So I am unbroken. That is my true identity. I think that also it would mean that against all odds, regardless of what is happening around me, I still stay intact, whole, and present. I think that would sum it up. Because unbroken, it sounds like a negative word, but it's actually a very positive word because you cannot be broken. That is the truth that I have come to see during my entire lifetime, that regardless of how broken I feel, when I am in that stillness, I know that I am not broken. I am unbroken. I am indestructible. That's what it means to me.
Absolutely, and that's a beautiful answer. But I know that life wasn't always so brilliant for you. You know, starting off, you had a very dominating father, and it was tricky growing up, wasn't it?
Oh, it was really tricky because it's not just that he was dominating, because you can handle that if you can communicate with a person. But what I knew as a 6 year old, which my mother, I think she hid it from herself. She didn't want to see it. But I knew as a 6 year old girl, when I was sitting talking to him, that there was something profoundly wrong with him. I knew that I needed to strategize when I spoke to him, not to agitate him. And I also knew that I was the more emotionally intelligent one in that conversation. And this is odd for a 6 year old to feel on the inside. Of course, I couldn't verbalize it that way, but I just had this feeling that I know what is going to trick him into his ego. And I learned how to navigate through that. What I didn't understand as a 6 year old was that he was mentally ill, and I could see that mental illness. And every time I asked my mother, is everything okay with him? Why is he doing this? She would just hush me and say, don't speak about that because you'll agitate him and he'll be angry. So don't speak about it. So I learned very, very, very early how to strategize, not to agitate him. it's a way of living in reaction and not in action, living on his terms, not on my terms, and knowing that that is the only way for me to live, because it becomes existential. If I don't do it, I know that bad things will happen to me. So it's a silent thing going on in a child's mind, and being intelligent, you can see it, and then being afraid, you can't speak about it, so it becomes your own secret. And this secret, I think it was a secret in our family just until recently, because my father passed away 3 years ago, and just before he passed away, my youngest brother told me that he had been diagnosed with some kind of mental disorder that was bordering on schizophrenia, but not full-blown schizophrenia. It was underneath the surface. And if we would have known that, life would have been different, but nobody spoke about it. We had this gigantic pink elephant in the room, and we were all tiptoeing around it. Nobody ever spoke about it, and yet it affected our lives on a profound level, telling me who I am. That was what it was. It was a mentally ill person defining who I was, which made me think that there was something profoundly wrong with me.
As you would, as a little 6-year-old growing up, you would think it, you would take it all on yourself, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. It was, I felt like it was my responsibility not to make him angry. And it also made, it was this funny thing that I had a lot of chores at home. When I was 8 years old, I was making dinner for the entire family. I was doing the washing. I was doing the shopping. I was a housewife when I was 8 years old. And that I was until I moved away, and I was 19 when I left that home. So doing all these things, I knew that everything would be fine and nobody would scold me. So when I was doing good things, I was invisible. Nobody saw me. The only time I was visible was when I broke the rules.
So it's this constant pressure of being perfect all the time and being a good
Yes,
girl and, you know, fitting in and not making a fuss. That is a lot of pressure.
absolutely. Absolutely. And then also there is this problem if you are a girl and you are using your mind, and I was using my mind. I was I loved reading. I loved thinking about things, contemplating, asking questions, and nothing of that was allowed for me to do at home. So I felt like when I was in school, I could excel, which I, of course, did. So I had great grades. Everybody was happy with me. At home, I couldn't speak about any of these things. I was being prepared to become a great housewife, a beautiful mother, a lovely wife, and that was my life. And I had another life going on inside me where I was dreaming of sitting amongst books. And I remember as a 10-year-old girl, I was thinking if I could be a librarian, then I would have all these books around me and I could sit there in silence and just
You're never alone
indulge in
with
all
a
the
book,
knowledge.
really, are you? You're never alone with a book.
Never ever. It is one of my companions. Only I did it in, I hid it. I couldn't show that I was reading. I was reading books in English when I was 12 years old, and my father interpreted this as I was trying to trick them because he couldn't read in English, so he couldn't control what I was reading, and I was being brainwashed by this book. So I had to hide the book, and the book was, um, oh my God, I can't remember the name of it. It's a great movie from the 50s with Rhett Butler and
On with the
Gone with the
wind.
Wind. I was
Yeah.
Yes, I was reading Gone with the Wind, and my father thought that I was being brainwashed by Gone. So you can see where I lived. That was the space I was occupying when as a child.
It's a very controlling environment, and your mum really being very inactive in it, very submissive and quiet towards his behavior.
Yes, and I think that there was a problem with this submissive thing because it made me resent my mother for a very long time. And as you know, living in resentment is not a good place to
No.
be. It is a hurtful place within. So I was hurting myself more than I was hurting her. But I remember a specific time. almost never abused physically by my father, but I remember one time, and it was the only time he did it, and it was my mother's birthday. She was going to be 30. I was 9 at the time, and my younger brother was 7. So we decided that we were going to buy something for her. And since we didn't have any money, I had the brilliant idea to steal some from our piggy bank. It was our money, but I said, let's take money out of this and buy a present to her. So we bought the present, and while we were wrapping the present, my father came into the room and he asked, what are you doing? And we said that, well, we're wrapping a present for mother. And then he asked, where did you get the money? And I knew that I couldn't tell him that we had stolen the money, because stolen, that would be horrible. So I lied to him. I said, we found it under the bed. And my younger brother, which was much smarter than I was at that time, because I saw how he looked at my father and then he ran off and hid in the toilet. And I was standing in the doorway. And my father said, I'm going to ask you this a last time. Where did you get the money? And I said, under the bed. And then I remember that I feel like I'm outside of my body, watching from the outside. And I see him hitting me back and forth several times in my face, and I'm not feeling anything. I'm just watching myself from the outside. And then I hear him say something like, this is not because you stole the money. This is because you lied to me and thought that you were smarter than me. I am always one thought ahead of you. I know what you're thinking before you're thinking it. And then he just turned around and left. And I don't remember much about that situation after that. I do remember that I couldn't go to school the day after because my face was bruised. And I also remember my mother coming home from work, and she sees me and my face is bruised, and she doesn't say anything. And I see that she is agitated, she's angry, and yet she's not saying anything. And I think that is when the deepest imprint in me was that I am alone in this. I will never, I can't ask for help. There is no one here to save me. I am alone in this.
It's like a double betrayal, really, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because you have no one you can trust. It again, it becomes existential. And when you have that kind of an experience, it molds you, it stays with you, it creates a pattern which then repeats itself over and over and over again until you see the pattern. And it can take years,
It
years,
can.
years, years.
We need to
Yeah.
wake up to what we're doing, and as you say, it can take a long time. One of the things I love reading in your book is when you're 11, you had this thought that you were from the start. Can you talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that?
Yeah, well, that was my time during the days. When I went to bed in the evening, I knew that I could be totally alone. No, not, I didn't need to serve anyone around me. So I could be alone with my thoughts. And this night, I was playing around with the thought that I could go to the outer rims of the universe to see the last star and to see what happens when I'm there. What is outside of the universe. So I tried in my mind, I pushed and pushed and pushed, and every time I reached the the border of it, I could feel a tingling feeling in my neck, and a new universe exploded. And I was thinking, okay, so this is my imagination. There's no end to this. I need to go to the window and look outside and see if I can see something that will show me what's beyond the universe. So I went to the window and I looked outside, and it was a brilliant starry night. So I looked at the stars, and then I closed my eyes and I could still see the stars. And that's when it hit me. The stars outside and the stars in my mind are one and the same, because they're made of the same stuff.
Yeah.
I am one with that. It was a um, profound thought within me, and it changed me and the way I looked at the reality. But I couldn't speak about this to anyone. So I had this aha moment illuminating me from within, and I couldn't share it with anyone. Well, I am sharing it now with lots of people all over the world.
Goodness.
Yes, and I feel like there is a purpose to everything that happens in our lives. So this thing realizing that being alone with my thoughts, I understand that why I was so lonely with my thoughts is because otherwise grown-ups would have corrected me and told me what was true and what wasn't. In a way, I was allowed to explore that on my own without influences from the outside.
Absolutely. In your own little silent secret world, you found the answers. So the beauty amongst all of that abuse going on. And you said you left when you were 19 and you met your husband Gregor at that time as well, but you weren't in a very loving place at that moment. And we spoke a little bit before, and it resonated with me a lot because when I met my husband, my opinion of myself was very, very low. And through his love, I saw actually I wasn't the image that I portrayed myself as. And I believe it's a similar experience for you.
Yes, it is. I knew the minute I saw him in the doorway that it was him. I literally heard myself saying, "Ah, there he is." It's such a beautiful moment because people say, "Oh, you know something, love at first sight," that way. That was the truth for me. And I sit here 36 years
Oh,
later
well,
and
I'm
still
37 years later. And I was
shoot.
17.
I was 19 when I met him, and I felt like finding my home in a way. It's really profound to do such a thing. Of course, I idolized him in the beginning, and of course, when you stop idolizing a person and see that there is a human being behind that godlike creature that you love from beginning, that is when the relationship deepens. But the first initial thing was so profound to me. I knew that that was my soulmate. And I was happy for every day with him. I also remember the first time he said that he loved me, and I doubted it because I was thinking inside of myself, I'm I am not a lovable creature. How can he love me? What is it that he loves? And then I had another thought. I was always thinking, well, when he finds out who I am, he'll stop loving me.
It's like you've jumped inside my head. I used to say exactly the same things to myself. When he really knows what I'm like, he'll leave. He won't want to know me anymore.
Why do you think we do that? Why do people do that?
It's very easy to focus on the negative, isn't it? And whatever mine was from an experience, it just left me feeling worthless and less than, and broken, I guess. But and I just replayed that record over and over again in my head. So when you meet something that's pure and true, I couldn't accept it because I was still not in a great place. That's my understanding, anyway.
Yeah, I think you're right because I always felt that like he was kidding me when he said these things. I used to tell him, "Don't tease me, stop teasing me," and he was going, Why do you think I tease you when I say these things?" I couldn't answer it. It just felt like it was that way. I think that there is a quote from Lois Glick, an American poet who received the Nobel Prize last year, and she says something like, she says, "We look at the world once in childhood, the rest is memories," which means that anytime we have had a traumatic experience, for me, it was many small traumatic experiences creating an image of me. It's a blueprint. As a child, we create a blueprint of responses, proper in quotation mark responses to certain things from the outside. And then anything that will remotely remind us of a situation, what we do is we regress back to that pattern and we pull that pattern out, and it becomes a filter. We can't see through that filter until we literally focus our awareness on the pattern and start asking questions. Why am I reacting this way? Why do I think that I am not worthy of this beautiful man's love?
But as you said before, we repeat this and repeat this. So I am a psychotherapist, so I believe it's when we get triggered because our trauma is held in our body, and it's not a feeling, it's not an emotion when we're getting triggered, it's a physical thing, and we have to work at it and work at it to really dilute these blueprints or these triggers or these memories so that we can eradicate all the energy that's held in our body. And you can do it, as you are a perfect example of. We can change the blueprint within our systems.
I think that changing the blueprint, it sounds like, oh my God, so much work. It isn't. It's just to be aware in every single now moment. That is the work. Because when you are aware in every single now moment, when you are aware of your reactions, and for me, understanding that I am not my body, I have a body, that I am not my feelings, I am exploring feelings, using them as tools to explore this reality. I am not my thoughts, I am the one thinking the thoughts. That made an enormous difference for me to understand.
I'm exactly the same. When I got to the point when I realized I'm not my body, I'm not the things that were done to me, I'm so much more than that. You know, the essence that all of us come in with, they could never ever damage that. That always remains unbroken. You know, it's whatever happens to us, we're not our events in our life. So I love how we both think the same way.
Yes, I mean, it's because I think that when you work with yourself, you come to this conclusion sooner or later. It becomes clear to you that you are not what is happening to you. You are the one observing it. And it's up to you to use that. I know that horrible things happen to people. I know that there are people who had much worse childhood than I have. But at the same time, it is what you do with it. I remember as a child feeling like everybody around me had wings and they could fly. And I had a backpack filled with bricks. I walked around with this backpack with bricks. I tried to fly, but I could just jump a little bit. And then when I decided to look at what am I carrying? What is it that I'm carrying in this backpack and why am I carrying it? Opening the backpack and looking into it, I found gold. And I was thinking, okay, so they can fly. I have abundance. I have gold. I can share my gold with everyone. That's almost like flying. And that is what all these traumatic experiences in our past are there for. This is why I strongly believe that the universe is a beneficial place to be in. And it gives you everything because you need it to grow or you need to do something with it that is of a beneficial way. And I know that it's really hard when you've experienced horrible things, but you know what I'm talking about because you're on the other side. You can look back at it and you can say, okay, so this defined me in a way which is allowing me to do what I'm doing today.
It's a paradox, really, isn't it? Because it did define me, and it
Yes.
was like a cloud over my head. It was my weather for years, and yet I'm not what happened to me. So it's a real paradox. And as you say, I can see it because I've done the journey. I've worked it and worked it and worked it. And I agree, everything is about where we put our attention. If I still focused on my traumatic experience, I would be caught there watching the same movies, reading the same books over and over again. But I've changed my cinema now and I've changed my library. I'm reading different books because I can't be stuck in the past anymore. It is this moment right now that is really important. And that's what I discovered on my journey. It's not about comparing ourselves to other people, you know, it's not a pain Olympics, but it comes down to it's not what happens to us, it's what we do with it. That's what really matters. And right here, right now, in this moment, I'm okay. I'm really okay. But it took a while.
Yeah, yes, but it's also about the definition, to rewrite the story about that definition, because of course you can look at it, oh my God, I was so violated, but you can also look at it, oh my God, look at how strong I am. Look at what is being done to me. And here I am, standing in my own light. I am unbroken. I am indestructible. This is who I am. So it's a way to show you who you truly are. I lived in victimhood for years. It's a horrible place to be in because you're outsourcing your own power. You say, they did this to me. And if they only did that, then I would be like this. You're living either in the future or in the past. And that is equivalent to living through your ego. It is not to live through your soul, and your soul is here. It wants to explore how it feels to have a body. I mean, courage to step out of that and to look at it from a higher perspective or a more clear perspective. Courage always shows you who you are,
Yes,
always who
absolutely.
you truly are.
It was courage for me to really step out, but after a while I was just tired of being a victim, I couldn't
Yeah,
take it anymore.
I know.
I
It
had to
wears you
stop it.
out.
Yeah,
It
it was
wears
love
you.
and courage that really came in, absolutely. So you talked about your soul. How did you become one of the 100 super soul teachers?
By, oh my God, by having the courage to speak my truth. And it took me half a life to do so. I was working with human beings everywhere. I've always been working with human beings. I'm interested in art. I'm an art historian, actually. So that's my academic background. But I was never ever speaking my truth the way I speak it today, because I felt like I had no voice. And that was a pattern from my childhood. I didn't have a voice as a child. So I was doing everything right except allowing my truth to come out. It stayed within me. So I started to tweet when my mother was really ill. She was at the hospital. She was diagnosed with a bad disease and she was dying. She didn't die from it. She survived, but yet that was my state of mind at that moment. And I was so angry because she never spoke her truth. She never said anything. She was just doing what she was told to do. I was sitting in the garden with my husband and he said, "You are so angry right now. You should allow this anger out, allow this knowledge out, allow this wisdom to come out of you somewhere. Why don't you tweet about it?" And I was thinking, oh my God, tweet about it. How can I do that? It's such a short space. And these are existential things that I'm doing. But again, he talked me into doing it. And I tweeted one tweet out, something about happiness, how it is a choice, or I don't even remember exactly the wording. And it's people started answering the tweet, and I was that is when it hit me. Oh my God, I can sit here in my garden tweeting out, and someone in India or Australia or somewhere else will answer me. It means that I can have a voice and reach exactly the right people out there. And it just from there it came flowing out of me. I started writing in English too, which also made, I must have had a former life somewhere in an English speaking country, because it really blew my mind open when I started writing in English. And so I started tweeting a lot. And 2015, somewhere in December, Sherry Salata, who was the executive producer at the time for Oprah, reached out to me and said that they loved what I do and they would love to invite me to be one of the SuperSoul 100. And I didn't realize what that was uh, until I was in LA in the hotel room, and I started looking at who is in this on this list, and I realized that, oh my God, I got the Nobel Prize in self-help. And since then, I have not been doing anything else but speaking my truth. And
And what
it's
I met
liberating.
you really on the Twitter world, and what I love about your tweets, you say they're existential, but actually they're very simple. It's just living your life and being
Yes.
grounded and being connected and stopping all the drama and not getting involved in fear and being free, just being who you are and total acceptance. It's just simple. It makes so much sense, and yet it's so difficult to do, isn't it?
It is, because it's so easy to get caught up in the reaction mode. And it's been one of the biggest lessons for me to not get caught up in that. Do not jump into drama, because drama is like a movie. It is played, it's not who I am. It's a movie. And if I want to watch it, I'll turn it on. But I can also turn it off if I don't want to.
Yes.
And Twitter is such a it's almost like a black hole. Sometimes it pulls people in, and then it creates drama and everybody's speaking at the same time. And I feel like I can be the light in that darkness. It's okay, I can do that.
Yep.
I also never ever allow anything to be posted by me if it's not past my love filter, as I call it. It has to pass the love filter. And it's not about lying to myself. It's not about creating a reality that isn't. It's about concentrating myself to the ultimate truth in this reality. And that is that the stillness from within is exactly the same in each and every one of us. That is the oneness between us. And everything we choose to explore in this reality, well, that is the purpose of our being here. But if I am focused on my stillness, I can reach you in your stillness, because that is the true connection. Everything else is the illusion between us. All the different opinions and arguments and all that stuff, it's the illusion that we're creating, exploring, playing with in this reality. But if I can speak from my stillness, I can reach your stillness. I can bypass all the drama and all the illusion between us, and then I can speak to your stillness. And if I can do that, well, that is a beautiful thing.
And I think people might not even be aware of what's going on. You know, it's even on a subconscious level. They'll read your tweet or hear your voice, and it will speak to something that they can't even put into words, because they maybe don't recognize that grounded place, that stillness within them. But it's building it, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah, it's about touching it, because if I create space within me that is this stillness, and I point it at you and it touches you, you connect to it. It's the same, the ego works the same way.
Mhm.
If I speak from my ego, I poke your ego and you answer from ego, which means that you will react.
Yes.
But if I speak from my stillness and I open up that space, I will poke your stillness and you open up that space. And there we can be.
We are mirrors, really, aren't we?
Yes, so much.
Absolutely. And then it's, you know, I think of you like I think of all the F's, but at the moment there's a lot of fear going on. But you also speak about forgiveness, and you speak about freedom, which comes from when we are in the stillness phase. How difficult is it for people to not get caught up in all of the fear?
Well, it is difficult because the ego is, oh, it's such a hungry creature. It craves reaction, it craves drama, it craves something to happen. So it's you have to be present in the now moment. Now, what does being present mean? Well, it means that you allow this stillness to be within you. You do not need to react. To question every reaction, and I'm not talking about a bear standing in your doorway. You need to react. You don't need to question that. You know that you need to react. What I am talking about is when you are with your loved ones and you feel triggered by something, you need to pull back a bit. And that's the hard part, to stop, pull back, breathe a couple of times. Do 4-4-4 breathing, breathe in, count to 4, hold, count to 4, breathe out, count to 4, so that you will oxygenate your body and become more clear in your mind. When you connect to that stillness, you will answer that person's stillness. If you do not do that, you are just amplifying the ego. I mean, we are all this unconditional light or love within us. We all have that when we are born. That is our true nature. If we can connect to that, then we can dissolve the illusion between us. And for me, my loved ones have been the greatest teachers. My son has been the greatest teacher in my life when it comes to this. The minute I start seeing lacks within him, I know that I have fallen asleep to who I truly am, that there is something else going on within me. This is a signal for me to stop, pull back, rethink, come back, and consciously answer.
So it's about becoming better observers in our life, better
Yes.
witnesses or detectives even, isn't it? Paying really, really good attention to where we go and what we do and how we feel.
It's about recognizing that there is so much more power in being aware of something, choosing not to react to it, not because you're a victim, but because you have free will and you choose not to react. it's so much power. It's really empowering to be in that place, to recognize a reaction before it happens.
Yeah, and that's a journey in itself, isn't it? Because so often people are just caught by what they're doing, and then they see it afterwards. Oh, I did that thing again. You know, when I worked as a therapist, I would always coach them, I guess, with catching, really paying attention. And then, as you say, hopefully we get to the place where just before we're about to do, we go, oh, I can feel I'm going to react in this way. What do I want to do? Then you're on the crossroads. Then you can say, I'm not going to do that anymore, or you fall into it. So it's not an overnight fix, really, is it?
No, it's not. And it's also about forgiving yourself every time you do something that you didn't plan to do. I do it all the time, but it's about soothing yourself in that situation, forgiving yourself, and not staying in a place where you feel guilt, because it is as bad a violation towards yourself as if you would lash out on someone else. So it's a learning process. You need to be kind to yourself. You wouldn't scold your child when it tries to learn to walk. You would say, oh, go ahead, try again, try again. That's how I would love if people would be towards themselves every day, being supportive, forgiving, there for themselves.
And I know you do tweet a lot about forgiveness. Why is forgiveness so important, do you think?
I think that forgiveness is, oh, it's like creating miracles in this world. Everywhere where there is forgiveness, m- miraculous space in time and space is created between the two that are involved. You don't need to be in the same room. It's about the space that you create around yourself, and it's holy, it is divine, because it resolves everything that is heavy.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate savior to forgive yourself. Yes, to forgive yourself and to forgive others. Forgiving others does not mean that you will be allowing them to be in your life anymore. Forgiving them is to see them for who they are, and to recognize that they're probably in a nightmare, to recognize their pain, because that is where they are operating from. And when you can do that, you can release them from it. But that doesn't mean that you need to be around them. When I forgave my father, um, I could see that he was doing the best he could. He didn't know how to do better. I can't put conditions on someone who is not capable of doing something better. So just realizing that he did what he could and he didn't know how to do better, and then realizing that he was in pain, because who would want to live in that world? He was creating his own nightmare that affected me, but it doesn't need to continue to affect me. And forgiveness releases me from that energetic bond to him. It releases the energetic bonds between the perpetrator and the victim. It neutralizes.
I absolutely agree. I always call myself an accidental forgiver. You know, I didn't intend to forgive these two men who very nearly killed me when I was just 13. And somehow I felt compassion in my heart towards them. And then, like you said, I saw when they were dehumanizing me, they're just dehumanizing themselves. They're not connected into their goodness, their light, their source, whatever you want to call it. And that's when I thought, I need to let go. And forgiveness, I guess, was my key to freedom. Totally.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when you do that, you open up space for yourself where literally miracles can happen.
Yes.
When you open up that space, you also feel the freedom, the lightness of not having that weight.
I totally agree.
And
So
yeah,
much easier.
it's such a beautiful place to be. What I did realize is that forgiveness, you need to forgive, otherwise you can't continue on. But it doesn't solve everything. I had to go back and look at the patterns that were created, and I had to do it objectively, because when my father was out of the picture, the emotions toward him were out of the picture, which means that I can go back without the emotions and look at what was done to me, what happened in my mind, what patterns, what belief systems did I create that I am using as masks or filters in this now moment. And I didn't need to invest emotions in this. So it's easier for me to dissolve it. As long as I am in an emotional victimhood state, I cannot see the patterns because I am focused on the person that created the patterns. So I need to release the person first, look at the patterns, and release them without the emotions.
Yes.
That's where I think that's where the true growth is, because forgiving is one thing and it helps you on the way, but it doesn't clear everything for you. You need to go back and see and change the stuff that doesn't work for you.
Absolutely. So we are kind of coming to the end. I could talk to you all day, and I do really encourage people to buy your book, Know the Truth, because it's not just a book that you read once. It's a book that I will dip into in and out many, many times, and I have done since I've had the book. And every time I read it, depending where I'm, out in that space that day, I see something different. I think, oh, I never looked at it like that before. So I thought, if that's okay with you, that I would just pick a number, which we already discussed before. We both had the same idea, and I just went for today's date. I haven't actually looked at today's reading for number 13, but here we are. Number 13 from Know the Truth. Would you like to read it for us?
Okay, I'll read it for us. Okay. We are not physical beings in search of our soul. We are souls experiencing a world of matter. We have all the power we will ever need already within.
And isn't that perfect for what we were speaking about today?
Exactly. It is so beautiful. It ends it so beautifully because it is about recognizing the soul that is exploring this reality and root every thought and action in that soul.
Yeah. Perfect. So if anybody out there, I can't believe it, is not connected to you on Twitter, go to My Power Talk and you will read Gordana's wisdom and it will resonate with you. Whether you're aware of that or not, it will resonate. Read it a few times because it will just ground you and keep you steady, and more importantly, keep you still. And in that silence, that's where your growth is. So Gordana, I'm just so grateful for you for taking time out today to speak to me on my show. Thank you so much. Any final words of wisdom for anyone listening?
Oh my God, you know something? I would love to do a very, very short meditation. I love to end my interviews with that short meditation, and let's do it together with me. All your listeners can do it together with me. So I want you all to put your hand on your heart and breathe in and breathe out and say together with me, I am the light in the darkness.
I am the light in the darkness.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the love in the hate.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the calmness in the storm.
I am the courage in the fear.
I am the courage in the faith.
And that's how I usually find myself. When I feel lost, I repeat those things to remind me of who I truly am. The rest is just an illusion.
A perfect way to end. Thank you so much for taking time out again.
Thank you, Madeline.
You're welcome.
Unbroken, the podcast, with Madeline Black, playing now on all the main platforms. Playing now on all the main platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher for Android, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and here. Play Unbroken, the podcast, with Madeline Black.